This week's Seder of Ki Tissa takes us to a very familiar narrative, one that we learn as children after hearing Hashem say very clearly not to create idols, not to worship idols. What do our ancestors do? They go and build an idol, the golden calf narrative. And we learn it as children as this great rebellion against Hashem and a sinful nation who had heard at Mount Sinai not to make idols, and they go and do the very same thing. Why? Moshe Rabbeinu had disappeared on them, and they needed to find something to worship, to pray to, whatever the version of the story, however you learnt it. It's a familiar text, but I want to provide perhaps an unfamiliar insight into this particular story. You see, the very first time Hashem says in the Torah something isn't good is loneliness. It's not good for a person to be alone. We all need somebody in our lives to support us. Let's put ourselves back into the world of the Jewish people in the desert. For them, Moshe Rabbeinu played that particular role. We know from a few weeks ago, his father-in-law told him off. Father-in-laws do that, but he told him off for carrying the burden of the whole nation on his shoulders. And he suggested different ways that Moshe could be the supreme judge, but share the burden somewhat. But for the Jewish people, Moshe was their great support system. They had problems. Moshe Rabbeinu carried them on their journey. And he disappeared. And they got anxious. And this story, therefore, is not about a rebellion against Hashem, because they weren't rejecting Hashem. They were filling the void in their lives that was left, according to their understanding, because Moshe Rabbeinu, at least temporarily, hadn't returned. It was a plea to create a support network. So what's the golden calf? Well, that's obvious. The context of their lives of growing up in Egypt, polytheistic society, the calf was worshipped, so they took what was familiar to them at that time. So yes, they were wrong for doing so, and they were wrong to ascribe divine powers, and they were wrong to worship it as a thing. But fundamentally, underlying their cause, what caused their sin, was a feeling of being alone, bereft of a leader, of a guide, and needing, and in the words of the song, somebody to lean on. And creating that calf gave them that tangible source. It's complicated to lean on Hashem. But something physical, you can find the support straight away. So that got me thinking, if that was the cause, the root cause of their mistake, so what golden calves do we build in our own lives? What do we lean on inappropriately? What do we worship as the source of our success that only is worshipped or pursued because of a void in our lives that could be filled if we had someone to lean on? If we create a community where we support each other and listen to each other, then people won't need to go in search of the forbidden to feel good about themselves, to feel nurtured and nourished. They will have that because the basic level, that it's not good to be alone, would have been met by each other. So let's commit this Shabbat. Commit to be there for one another. That no Jew should ever feel alone or be lonely. No Jew should have to look outside of him or herself to find something foreign, external to support them. They should feel supported and nourished. If that's the community, then we can create together that we have gone a long way to rectify the golden calf. But no one's building calves today. But we often create the circumstances through which the golden calf can be the end result of our actions. Let's be there. Let's create that warm society. Shabbat Shalom.